Chapter 10. Love Lost. On April the 21st, 1982, I was placed in a foster home. That night, I went into labor. We arrived at the hospital a little after 10, and Asia was born at 12:01 a.m., April the 22nd. It didn't take long at all. I had more pain with my stitches than with the actual delivery. My counselor from Hilltop offered to buy Asia's first outfit. I asked her for a strawberry shortcake dress. She was unable to find the dress, but she did find a strawberry shortcake sleeper. It was perfect, and Asia was even more perfect. They said that she was the prettiest baby in the nursery. I agreed. When I was released, I went back to the foster home. My foster mother's name was Mrs. Baxter. She had been a friend of my grandmother's for years, and I assumed that's how I ended up in that particular home. I settled in with my new baby, and I gained a little weight for the first time in my life. I thought my loved ones would stop calling me Bones, but they didn't. Mrs. Baxter never gave me any trouble about going to see my family, so I could go into the inner city quite a bit. Asia's father moved only 2 blocks down the street from my grandmother, and my friend Rue now had her own apartment with the father of her baby. I spent more time there than I did at the foster home, and Nepal came with me. Mrs. Baxter ordered me to let one of the girls take Asia outside, and I refused. She called me all kinds of names and threatened to call my caseworker. She told me that she wanted me out, and I told her that she didn't have to call anyone to get me out. I packed all that I could fit into a diaper bag, grabbed Asia, and took off walking. There was a Kmart nearby, and I called Mrs. Mills, and she sent her friend to pick me up. I got dropped off at Grandma Mattie Beauty Salon because I didn't know where else to go. We talked for a long time, then she dropped me off at Grandma Dorothy's. I never told Grandma Mattie that I desperately wanted to stay with her, but I wish I had. This was now home again, and I stayed put for a little while, even though I visited the Mills down the street. My mother came around to help with Asia, and she told me things like not to sleep so soundly because of SIDS, and not to give her too much water in the early months because it could cause brain damage. I really needed the advice, and it was greatly appreciated. My brothers were crazy about Asia, and they gave me a lot of help and support. Floyd babysat while I went to school. Genesis was an alternative school for kids who were unsuccessful in public school for whatever reason. I didn't seem to fit in there either, but I tried my best to keep up. My brother Cam was attending school there too, so I had a reason to get up and go every day because I knew that I would be seeing him. Spending time with him would be the highlight of my day. I don't think he ever knew just how much I loved him, or how much I still do. Eventually, I was staying at the Mills' house for weeks at a time, but Nepal and I fell out quite a bit. He loved his daughter, and he would do everything for her that a father should. He'd even comb her hair and make plenty of little ponytails. I remember the relatives making fun, saying, "Nepal, you act like you're the mother," and we'd all laugh. There was never a problem with him doing right by Asia, but we had other problems: alcohol, drugs, and other women. I never cheated on Nepal, but he went out on me quite a bit. But because he was honest, I forgave him. He appeared to be just as hurt by it as I was. Since Nepal was honest with me, I never felt that another woman was a threat to our relationship. Well, I was wrong. Her name was May, and Nepal was seeing her regularly. I never even realized until now how much of an impact this had on me, but I cry as I write, so it is apparent now. Life after May was never the same. I told Nepal that if he really loved her, he should go to her, and when he did, I was crushed. The juvenile office had gotten fed up with my not staying at home, so they sent my worker to pick me up. I didn't know what they were going to do with me and my baby. I thought they would take her away from me. So I stood upstairs in my grandmother's house trying to figure out how I could escape. I called Nepal's mother and I was frantic. I said, "I'm going to jump out of this window. I don't want to lose my baby." She told me not to jump, and she assured me that she would help me fight for my baby. I went down the stairs to face them, and my grandmother and Cheyenne, an old friend of the family, said that they would keep Asia for the night. I was placed in a cell at juvenile until the next morning. Then, much to my surprise, my worker recommended that I be released from the court system. He told the judge that although I would not stay at home, I took excellent care of my baby, and he did not see any reason why I should be detained any longer. The judge granted my release, and I was ecstatic. I couldn't wait to see my baby and share the news with the Mills family. After Nepal abandoned me, it seemed like I had no one. Carl Hyman was a neighbor that had been living next door with his parents for years. He was now renting the upstairs apartment in my grandmother's apartment house. I moved back in with my grandmother, and he started flirting and giving me things like cigarettes, food, and a few dollars here and there. Eventually, this led to my being in some very compromising positions with him. Carl was at least 25 years my senior. Although he could not perform sexually, he was molesting me. He seemed to think that I was a woman because I had a child, but I was far from being a woman. I was a child with a child. I accepted his money for Pampers and food because I needed it, and I let him do the things that my stepfather and my cousin had done. When we ran out of food at the Mills's house or at my grandmother's, I would call Carl Hyman and use my body for pork chops, punch, cigarettes, and a few dollars. I never told anyone exactly where the money was coming from, but now that I look back, I feel like some adult had to know that something was wrong. One day, Nepal called me and told me to catch a cab and meet him at his cousin's apartment on the west side. He said that he had money for me and Asia. When I got there, it was just the three of us. Then a horn blew outside and Nepal went out. I went to the door to see who it was, and it was May. When she saw me, she jumped back in the cab and the driver pulled off. But Nepal grabbed a hold of the back door and the cab was dragging him down the street. I stood there thinking, he must really love her. Then the cab pulled over and May got out. The two of them came in together. I told Nepal that I wanted to go home, but he would not let me. I didn't understand why he wanted me there, but I knew from past experiences that I had better not make him mad, especially being that far away from home with no money. I felt humiliated as he made me sit there with the two of them. Eventually, they went to the store and they offered to bring me something back, but I wouldn't accept anything from either of them. While they were gone, I tried to figure out how I could get out of there. There was no phone and I didn't have any money. The weather was bad and I had my baby to think about. I was afraid I would be caught if I tried to seek help from the neighbors, so I stayed the night against my will. When it was time to go to bed, I had to endure the pain of watching him sleep in the same bed with her. I cried myself to sleep, and when morning came, he walked down to the store and called me a cab, came back, gave me some money, and I went home. I believe he thought the amount of money he had given me would make up for the pain he had caused, but this thing could never be made right in my heart. My feelings for him would change forever. A few weeks later, there was an incident involving the neighbors down the street. They fired a gun into the Mills's house and nearly shot Mrs. Mills. Nepal fired back, and there was a pregnant woman in the midst who took the bullet. It was only by the grace of God that she and her baby were not killed. Nepal was arrested, sentenced, and served approximately 6 months in the county jail. I guess they considered what had happened to be self-defense. While Nepal was serving time, Mrs. Mills and I set out to find me an apartment. I moved to T.B. Watkins Projects in Kansas City, Missouri. This was the really tough area, and I was not accustomed to this environment, but I was excited and very grateful for the assistance that Mrs. Mills had given me. She would always encourage me by telling me that I was a good mother and that I was going to make something of myself someday. I was almost 17, and I had my first apartment. I was receiving state assistance, so my rent was very cheap. Things appeared to be looking up. Tragedy soon struck again. Mrs. Mills started having severe headaches, and she went to the emergency room. She was examined and then given medication and sent home. The headaches only got worse, and we all insisted that she go back to the hospital. The next time we saw her, she was in a coma, and we were in shock. How could someone be seen for a migraine and end up in a coma? The family was told that she was given the wrong medication by accident. It was medical negligence. I would go alone to visit her because I didn't want to upset her children with my tears. On the last day that I visited her, I knew that she was no longer with us. I left the hospital trying to keep my composure for the family. I was accustomed to stepping up and being the rock, no matter what the circumstances were, even while I was stricken with grief myself. The woman who had been mothering me to the best of her ability for the past 4 years was gone, but there was no time for mourning. Her children needed me, so I went to see the family and I told them to go to the hospital as soon as possible. I didn't tell them why, because I didn't know myself how I knew that she was gone. I know today that it was the gift that God had given me that allowed me to see that. After speaking with the family, I headed home. I only made it to their driveway, and then I broke down. I didn't know that the oldest girl, Lizzie, was behind me. She asked me if I was crying about her mother, and I couldn't answer her. She said her mother would be all right and told me not to cry, but I could only shake my head. We hugged, and then I left. Later that day, the hospital confirmed my revelation. They told the family that she had passed away. Those children were devastated, but they tried to stay strong. Some of them came to live with me, and I tried to be there for them. After all, my having a baby with their brother made them my family. Nepal was not allowed to attend his own mother's funeral. I thought that was cruel and inhumane, considering the fact that the reason he was incarcerated was because he was protecting his mother.